Hey there, I'm Ben Alvarez. I'm the exhibitions director here at the Lawrence Art Center, and we're in the gallery at the Lawrence Art Center with artist in residence Ashlyn Pope. Ashlyn's you've been with us for 2 years now. You got the bonus year, thanks COVID. But so this is your solo show. This is the exit show, and it's spectacular. And so hopefully you can share a little bit more insights into what you did and what this work is about and where it's going. But maybe talk a little bit about the title and where that comes from.
Absolutely. So the title, Witnessing Dandelions, if anybody who knows me knows I like to read all types of things. And once I came across this article, a psychology article, and it was talking about children in particular. So it was child psychology. And the title, or at least the name that they gave children, or at least one type of children's personalities, is called dandelion children. And the reason that they gave them this name is because these children who experience trauma and these extreme horrors in their youth still seem not to be as affected as you would think a child would be during these experiences. They grow like weeds through the cracks of cement, like they still grow and thrive within these places, so they named them dandelion children. And so when I was thinking about a title and in my work and what I wanted to say, to me, dandelions not only referred to like this idea of children, but to me it actually represented the experiences of Black Americans throughout history. We are these dandelion children, so I named it Witnessing Dandelions.
So this piece, which is the most substantial piece in the entire exhibit, it was really interesting and sort of a math challenge to figure out how this piece was going to come together, structurally, and with the volume of cups that are on display on this wall. So formally, there was a lot to think about from the gallery director brain, but it's such a powerful and very specific idea that you're expressing. I'd really like to have other people hear what I've heard you talk about it, but talk about this piece. What's the title of it?
So the title is called The Birth of a Nation When Cotton Was King. And so this piece is really about the past and the present at one time coming together. And so I did it where it's the current American flag with all 50 stars, and all 50 stars are actually cotton bowls. And then I also embedded within it the 13 original colonies. And so you can see them here in the blue, kind of outlined in the original 13 colonies. And so it's really addressing the idea of, or the history of Black people in America. And I use cups to do that in order to talk about the invisible labor of this functional item, this utilitarian item, and the way that also addresses Black bodies in America. We are just like these cups in my eyes, where we are following, where cups are used to drink from, and then we all of a sudden put them in the sink and they're no longer thought about until I need another drink. And that's exactly how I thought about Black bodies in America. We were used for these labors, these needs for the economy to move forward, for these building of structures. And then when we no longer were needed, we were discarded and still kind of pushed to the side. It's an addressing of slave ancestors, but also of the systemic racism today.
Talk about the binding, the impressions that are in every cup, I think.
Every one of them.
Right? You physically took rope and bound.
Yep. And so, I physically bind each one of the pieces. And it's actual rope. I'm using sisal rope, just a rope, a general rope that would have even been used during slavery. And I go in and I bind all of these forms. And then I take them back off, because the point is that when you look at them, you're supposed to see the impression of rope, which I don't think you can totally mistake. But then it also about the invisibleness of it. It is no longer a rope there, but it's the impressions and the marks left on that body. And so I am addressing kind of the movement of Black bodies from slavery into this level of racism that we experience today.
And I'm curious about the feet that are on in this section, the star section. These all have sweetgrass.
Mm-hmm.
How come?
Because to me, what happens is instead the support of each of the 50 states, each of these locations required Black bodies to make it happen. But what supported us in that movement is our culture, trying to hang on to some significance of family, of our people, in whatever way we could do that, with children being sold off left and right. It's trying to maintain who we are within that. And so I felt it was most important that within the 50 stars themselves, that the support needed to be underneath them that was on culture.
That's incredible. It really is.
Thank you.
It's a very moving piece.
Thank you.
And beyond just sort of the physicality of knowing what it takes to do something like this, like the thoughtfulness and the level of entry point for people is unique, and it's not something that every piece of art does. And so I think this is a signature Ashlyn Pope piece, I think.
Thank you.
All right, so here we are. We've moved to the middle part of the room now, and you've got these 5 pieces on pedestals that all are the pots are stacked on different materials that are connected to you personally and to you culturally. Talk a bit about these 5 pieces.
Absolutely. So first I'll give you the title of these pieces. They are all called epigenetics, and they're numbered 1 through 5. So I first wanted to tell you a little bit about the title itself. So epigenetics is a term when we're talking about biology, and it's referring to the idea that trauma is passed down through an RNA cells. And so our reaction to trauma is actually kind of embedded within ourselves and passed through family lineage. And so this piece was inspired by, and their name came from, the idea that Black bodies throughout history have had these experiences with these crops, and because of these crops. But even though I don't do anything with these crops other than cook or wear these clothes, I am left with the marks in my DNA of what those experiences were for my ancestors. And so, but these pieces in particular are all of the crops that a lot of slaves were brought over to harvest themselves. And so it was cotton, tobacco, indigo, sugar, and rice. And my cultural family, my ancestral lineage, the Gullah people themselves would have harvested more of the rice and the indigo as a culture of people. We come from a place in Africa that had already been doing these types of harvesting crops within their own country. And so it was easier for masters to bring and take slaves that already knew this trade versus trying to train new people. And so my culture, the people would have actually been harvesting these. However, my own family, my grandmother, she's in her 70s now, but she used to tell me stories when she was a little girl at 6 years old, going into the fields and having to harvest cotton and coming home with bloody fingertips. And so I am more connected, at least as an individual, to the history of cotton than I am necessarily to the crops that my people would have harvested.
Wow. And so all these pots are sort of nesting in those different crops, materials.
Mm-hmm.
I really love the way, and I echo sort of what I said about the flag piece, the way that you take on your own personal lineage, and then, but there's a broader conversation that is, they're all woven together in a way. I think you have a very good touch, I think, with melding those things in some way, and so I think, these are really powerful pieces, and the imagery, the detail that's on the surface of the works is sort of echoing all of that as well, right?
Yes, so yes, the imagery themselves are of rice and cotton and indigo and tobacco. And I thought it was important to make them echo on their bodies, because I think about the scars too, that those are physical presence on their forms as well. And so, I think that's why it was important to make sure the imagery also appeared, not just under them, but on them.
Right. All right, so I know you were here as the ceramics artist in residence, but you've got your hands on all sorts of other things too, and you also have a background in fashion as well, right?
I do.
So there are some quilts that you made for this exhibit, and this one especially, you've got a great story about sort of what was informing this one. Talk about that.
Talk about that story. Okay. So this is actually an image of my niece. And so one thing I want to state that I love about Black culture is our hair, and the way that our hair can transition and inform so many different things about us. And so there was one time where my niece and I were outside, and she told me that she was afraid of the cops, and I told her, "Oh, baby, don't be scared of the cops. We can go talk to them. And what struck me the most is that I saw that the light, the childness in her eyes kind of started to fade a little bit. And that really kind of hit me hard. And so I wanted to pay homage kind of to my niece and her youth and all of the little children of the Black community who have to grow up a little too soon. And so I created this piece, which, if anybody's brave enough, you can listen to her braids and beads clinking together. And I named the piece "The Sound of Her Own Music," because one time where I see that she is actually a child, or she is in the pureness of joy with being a child, is when we get to do her hair, and she gets these beads in her hair and she swings them as hard as she can to hear this sound.
That's awesome. Again, such a personal story, broader stories to be told. And so there are other pieces in here that are less directly rooted in past histories, but are more overtly looking forward, like this. Let's walk over to this quilt here. And it's the only quilt, I think, that's got the frame still on it. So tell me about that one.
Okay. So this one is based off of the goddess Oshun, which is, I believe it's Nigerian goddess who is focused on like fertility and kind of moving into the future, birthing something new. And so in my piece, she's of course pregnant because she's birthing a new future. And so I wanted to make sure she still encompassed all of the things that I imagined with Blackness, our hair, and this idea of just beauty, the way I see beauty through color and skin tone, and also just making sure that I left the frame on this piece. And the reason that the frame is on this piece is because she's still in the state of becoming. And so the back of the piece is finished. However, in the center, right in this middle, it is open and visible for everyone to see the stitching that took to make this piece come to life. Because to me, that is witnessing the state of its becoming.
Nice. And no eyes.
No eyes.
How come no eyes?
The reason for no eyes is because, to me, the eyes are the windows of the soul. And they kind of tell us exactly who a person is. And so I removed all of them because I want this to be anyone. It's anonymous. It doesn't belong to any specific person. It could be me, it could be my mother, it could be my sister, it could be any of us. And so they get no eyes, but they get their very full lips and their wider set noses and all of the things that I just find absolutely beautiful about Blackness.
Okay, Ashlyn, so this piece here, I'm calling it a piece, although there are 7 pots on one shelf. It has a single title. And I've heard you talk about this work before, about the significance of the color. So I don't want you to just talk about the shelf, but talk about these pieces, and then also, this color.
And its significance.
Its significance it's everywhere here.
Yes.
So, but talk about these pieces and what they're all about.
Okay. So this piece is called A Nation When Black Excellence Won't Be Denied. And the reason that I decided to make these pieces exist as one, to read as one, is because I was thinking about Black bodies no longer being separated and some put up high on pedestals and some being sitting on the ground or sitting at different levels, but about us all being on one level in the same place, experiencing the same things and able to just kind of revel in what we just deem as beautiful. And so these pieces are also about Afrofuturism. They are looking at the movement of Black bodies as well, but into the future. By me doing this in ceramics, I imagined it differently than the way I did it in quilts. And the way that I did that is that I make pieces that are based off of my ancestors' sweetgrass baskets. And the baskets are one of the main staples of art within our culture. And I instead take that interpretation and turn it into clay and create my own version of sweetgrass forms. And so the color of the shelf is really an important color. This color we call haint blue. It is a color that in Gullah culture was used and painted on the ceilings of porches or on the front doors of their houses or on the window shutters of their homes. And the reason is because the haint blue is supposed to act like a disorienting agent. It's a protective symbol because what it is are believed evil spirits, or what we call boo hags, would see this color, get disoriented, think they're out in the ocean and go flying backwards. And therefore these evil spirits cannot enter into our space, and so we are safe from with this color. And this color is reflected throughout my exhibition for many different reasons. It acts its main use is to act as a protective symbol.
That's great. I like the way you talked about the regalness of basically claiming the function of what sweetgrass had a function to support the pot, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And sort of turning that on its head a little bit, in a sense, and using that as sort of I don't know if decorative element is the right phrasing, but it's not, because they're integral to the pots, I think, especially on a pot like that where it's physically
supporting, yep.
The top portion. And then there's sort of the crowns that appear in different forms. Is that, is that pointing directly at that sort of regalism, or is there something else going on there?
I think it's a bit of pointing towards this idea of regalness, but then also when we think of ourselves as Black bodies, when we as a Black community think of ourselves, we think of ourselves in this light of being kings and queens and just kind of not knowing it. Mm-hmm. And so at this point, what I'm doing with these is letting them know that they are kings and queens and that they get to live their life on the same plane as everyone else. And so that's exactly why I use the gold crowns.
Great. Making sweetgrass out of clay. you're the queen of that, I think. Because I've seen how much labor goes into making that, and it's everywhere, and you've really done a terrific job with it.
Thank you.
And with everything else. It's a terrific show,
Thank you.
and it's been great having you here in Lawrence for 2 years. And I'm sure I'll see you around.
Oh, you'll see me around.
Yeah.
And so will everybody.
All right, well, that's it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and see you later.